Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Boxed Up on Channel Classics, and Fedorova doing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerti and the Paganini Rhapsody on 3 discs, presumably attractively priced. At least I hope so, because most of the competing Rachmaninoff concerto cycles manage to squish everything onto 2 discs. So you don't want to pay more if you don't have to. Anyway, these are, well, how do I describe this? She's accompanied by the Symphony Orchestra of St. Gallen under Modestas Pitrenas, a second-tier orchestra. But they play well enough. They could, it seems to me, have a richer string sound, especially the big gushing tune at the beginning of the second concerto, for example. But the key here is Fedorova and the sonics, believe it or not. Now, let's take it concerto by concerto. Fedorova is a Rachmaninoff specialist, or so she bills herself, and she certainly knows the music very well, and she plays it very beautifully, really beautifully. In fact, the slow movements of all of these concerti are some of the most gorgeous performances I've ever heard. I'll say that straight off the bat. They are beautiful and flowing and sensitive and beautifully shaped. I mean, they're really, really lovely. However, and here's the however, you knew it was coming. First concerto, the outer movements, well, they tend to hang fire a little bit. You know, Fedorova's approach is studied. I don't mean studied in the sense that it lacks sort of spontaneity. I mean studied in the sense that she really thinks every note matters, and most of the time she can put them together in phrases that sound very good and that make it count. But there are moments in second subjects, for example, in the first concerto's first movement, where the tension just kind of sags. And it's an issue. The finale is zippy and pleasant, and that's okay, but there are better performances with more fiber and more steel in the piano sound. The second concerto, well, she's competing with herself, which I find, just rant time. It is amazing to me today how artists manage to duplicate things that, I mean, Fedorova is a great pianist. I mean, very fine. I mean, great meaning like she knows what she's doing. She's very, very good. Great like Horowitz? No, but I mean, she really knows what she's doing. And she does specialize in Rachmaninoff, but she's already recorded the second piano concerto. It's on Piano Classics, and it's a very good performance, and it's one that's actually sonically, I think, sonically more traditional. In other words, the piano's a little bit more forward. You hear more detail in the piano playing. The orchestra is good. It's a more in-your-face performance. These are recessed recordings. The piano image is embedded in the orchestral texture, which makes sense of these pieces, especially the second and third concerti, which are really like symphonies with piano obbligato. I get it, but you just want more impact, more force. I mean, if you crank the volume up, Channel Classics always makes beautiful sounding recordings, and they're warm, and the acoustic is lovely, and yeah, okay. But you just want to hear more piano stuff. And she does interact beautifully with the orchestra, for example, in the first movement of the second concerto. But there's just not enough surge. Once it gets going, it just kind of drifts. It sort of floats. And it's very, very pretty. Really, 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 really pretty. But it just floats, and the finale really floats, and you don't want this finale to float. This finale needs to rip. It really does. It just needs more. It's wonderful to hear all the notes. I mean, you hear inner details in the piano writing. I found it very pleasant to listen to. But I've had these performances since they came out as single discs. I've been listening to them for a long time, and trying to get my bearings, because on the one hand they're so lovely, but on the other hand, I'm not sure how well they bear repetition. The third concerto is another example. The first movement is one of the slowest ever. It's almost 20 minutes. It's 19 and a half minutes with no cuts, and she plays the big cadenza. So I get it. And the opening sounds like it's a normal tempo. It really does. It flows along beautifully. She relaxes a lot in the slower bits. Okay, fine. The slow movement, well, that's always a bit problematic for me because I think it just sort of dies. And she does her best not to kill it. It really is lovely. But the finale, the finale. I mean, you wish that she took the cuts. You really do, because it just seems to take forever. Now, people argue about the cuts in the third concerto. And I understand. I'm a completist myself. I think you should always play the whole thing. However, the third concerto is one of those pieces that sort of, bucks the trend, because I've heard it a zillion times with and without cuts, and half the time with the cuts I don't even notice them. I mean, you can't say that these cuts have meaningful structural functions. I mean, people say that. They say it all the time. Well, that big cut, the finale, I mean, it compromises the movement structure. To which my response is, yeah, how? Explain to me what the difference is with or with. You can't. You can't. I mean, it's beautiful music. You don't want to lose it. But if you're going to take your time, well, that's another question. Anyway, I mean, that's a digression. It's a semi-successful performance of the third. The fourth is beautiful. Now, the fourth is sort of big-boned. She gives it a seriousness and a weight that I think the piece can take and that I think it needs, which is really, really nice. I mean, it's very, very good to hear it. I was very impressed with the fourth concerto all the way through. The Paganini Rhapsody, well, the Paganini Rhapsody gets another very good performance. Really does, especially the very end. The end, there's a million ways you can do that ending. Dum, ba-da-da-dum. She does a throwaway ending. It's just yum, ba-da-dum, it's gone. I love that. She knows when not to mess with it. That, to me, is the mark of a mature artist. The 18th variation is beautiful and songful. It doesn't die. I mean, the creepy Dies Irae stuff is nicely done. It's all very, very good. And the orchestra sounds wonderful in that performance, too. That is coupled here with 4 preludes, which are beautifully played, and the Youth Symphony in D minor, which is just a worthless piece of dreck that no one ever needs to hear, and it adds nothing to the picture. So, where are we? Well, I mean, my favorite performances remain the quicker ones. Zoltan Kocis with San Francisco particularly, because it's as close to Rachmaninoff as you'll ever get, but in great sound and with plenty of personality of its own. Earl Wild and Jascha Horenstein remain, amazing. The Stephen Huff performances with Lytton are just glorious on Hyperion. There are plenty of fine Rachmaninoff piano concerto cycles. This one is different. It's definitely different. It's different in every way in terms of the pianist's approach, which is entirely valid, in terms of the sonic frame in which she's presented. I can't dismiss this set, and I wouldn't want to. They're performances I enjoy, but I enjoy them on occasion. For certain aspects of the works, I think for a fuller picture, I would stick with the recommended recordings I just mentioned. So there you have it, my friends. Keep on listening and take care.